Okay, so I'm here with Cedric today, a retired digital nomad who has been living the slow travel digital nomad lifestyle for the past 6 years. So, right before we dive into learning more about your experience of becoming and being a digital nomad, I want to learn more about your background experience before. So, what were you
Okay.
doing before? Yeah. That.
Okay. So I grew up in France. This is where I've studied, and I moved to the US shortly after graduating, and that's where I've worked most of my career as a software engineer from 2008 to 2018, so for 10 years. And then after working for 10 years, I realized that, I have options and I could potentially get to travel the world pretty much full time if I've changed my perception of how I was spending money. And um, so, yeah, this is kind of a bit of my background.
Right. And basically, what inspires you to embrace like the nomadic lifestyle and to leave behind the traditional way of living? Like you mentioned about changing your perception of money. So at one point, like what is the trigger point? Is it by reading, like the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, or like what are the other trigger points?
Yeah, so I did read that book from Tim Ferriss. Maybe shortly after I moved to. So when I moved to US, I moved to California, to the Silicon Valley. So
Yeah.
I think 2008, 2009, shortly after the book came out, I read about it. But at that time, it didn't really click. All of the notion about you can outsource a lot of the work that you do, and then you can free up a lot of your time. All of that didn't really click. I was just like focusing on my career.
Yeah.
The California being a high cost of living, I was also making good money there, so I was really happy and trying to immerse myself to a new country. But after a while, I was really feeling like people were really working a lot there compared to Europe. People in Europe tends to focus in work is like family and friends first and work seconds. When I feel like in the US it's kind of the opposite. So a lot of the dynamics were really, really different. But I still wanted, for me, really focusing on what I care about, which was travel, and exploring was always something I was excited about. But I could not really find a way to. In my mind, it was like, oh, maybe at some point I will take a year off, travel, and then go back to work. Um, I think what happened is that as I've met my partner and we both wanted to travel, we realized, okay, let's try. She wanted to travel for a year, and she was telling me, oh, to travel for a year we need that much money. And coming from Europe, I thought that it was like with that amount of money we could probably travel 3, 4, even 5 years. Like the amount of money she was having was like insane. It was taking me about like 100,000, 150,000, like for like a round trip around the world, like very luxurious experience. So anyway, we just started doing research about really what's the cost of traveling for a year was, and then we started stumbling about people that were traveling pretty much permanently or indefinitely. And we were wondering how is that possible? How can you travel, especially at a younger age? Those people were not retirees; they were in their 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
So
So you
that,
met a lot of people like that along the way.
well, through that research, initially we started to connect with those people,
Right.
and then all of those people were kind of part of that community called FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence and Retire Early. So we dig into those concepts, and that's helped us really understand more what personal finance was about. And that's where I realized, oh, we didn't know anything about personal finance, and what we felt about investing or even savings was really not optimized. So we started learning more about this, and this is from that point we say, oh, if we change how we invest our money, then we have the ability to have basically the money work for us. I mean, back to Tim Ferriss, like trying to outsource things, we're starting to transition from having working for money, basically you go to work and you trade your time for money, to having then the money work for you. So that's kind of one of the change we're starting doing.
One of the major change in the way you think about money. So that allows you to achieve like financial independence.
Yeah, so basically when we're starting putting ourselves on that route, so basically the kind of the guideline was, if you take the guideline is like if you know how much you need to spend per year, if you multiply that amount by 25.
25.
Yeah. So let's say if you need to spend 10,000 a year, you will need 250,000. If you need to spend 40,000, then you will need a million. If you have that amount of money that you invest, then you don't need to add additional income. You don't need to work anymore once you get to that level.
Right.
So we did kind of look at the numbers because we were kind of early savers, because I was saving early in my life, and that was already like for me working in California for 10 years. By the time I realized that, I already have pretty much saved enough. So then the question was like, okay, do I want to keep working in the Bay Area and settle there, or do I want to like basically start using that money and do things I love, which were for me travel.
When you mentioned like you start saving and investing early on, like into Amazon and other stuff, and you realize like by around like age 36, like you have enough. Like what does the definition of enough like mean to you? Is it for the next 20 or 30 years like living the nomadic lifestyle, already retire, or like can you define that a bit?
Yeah. So if you go back to that 25x rules, it's supposed to be, so that's basically. That was based on a study, I think it was called the Trinity study. They was looking at regular retirees and looking at their portfolio. And 25 was basically 4%. By doing 25 the amount, you basically can take up to 4% each year. And they realized that if you take no more than 4% on that portfolio, it will sustain its life over, I think, a 30-year period. Those people were usually, by the time they were 60, 70, they were retirees, and they need to live another 20, 30 years. But it turns out that you can extrapolate that, and that rule still works for a longer period of time.
I see.
So yeah, basically when you hit that number, technically you don't need to have additional incomes coming in. So you are set, and you can just basically retire.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now for me, the question was like, okay, what will be enough? What will be my yearly spending? I knew my yearly spending in California, which was like cost of living, but what will be that yearly spending if I get to travel all the time, go to different country? You have to account for flight, for experience, and all of that. So I was kind of being conservative, but basically I put the bar quite high.
Yeah.
And also say it's going to be a test. If after a year it doesn't work, I can always go back to my job, and things will be fine.
Right.
So I put the bar quite high, and right now we are only spending, for some people it might be a lot, but for the past 6 years, our average spend were around 40,000 a year.
I see.
So that's how much we spend to do, that includes, so that's for 2 people, and that includes everything. Yeah, so it's not, so technically it will be 20 if it will be just for myself.
Yeah.
But again, if you travel solo, that number will be a bit higher, because some of the costs are not like, accommodation will probably be something similar. But anyway, so yeah, 40,000 a year has been the average. I think we started around 30,000 the first year, and we've slightly increased that a little bit. But we had the nest eggs that were able to give us a bit more than that.
I see.
Yeah, and we did that. So the first year we were very, very like tracking everything we were spending for the first few years. Then COVID happened, so there was like a lot of change that happens during that time. But then it has been 6 years, and our spending has been roughly the same. So we feel quite comfortable that now we can sustain this pretty much forever. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you just earlier you mentioned by reaching out to the early retirees, they mentioned some strategies in terms of investing and spending that kind of inspired you in a different way. Can you maybe get a bit more specific into that? What some of the strategies?
Yeah, of course. So so when I say investing, so what you have to do is basically it's kind of a boring strategy, and it's mostly focusing on the stock market.
Yeah.
So you take all of your money and you invest them, instead of trying to pick up a stock.
Yeah.
You just invest it very broadly. So the vehicles that most people use are low-cost ETF. So, and they are broad ETFs. So it's basically investing on all of the US, the top 3,000 I think company in the US. So that's one of the vehicle. And then you can invest on the rest of the world, so the international market.
Yeah.
And your portfolio is roughly, I think mine is roughly 60 US and 40 international. And it's a low-cost broad index, which means that first you don't have to pick the best company. The index automatically pick the best company by market cap. So right now it's a lot of Nvidia and Tesla and Facebook, a lot of tech company. But in 10 years, because the investment horizon for me is like 40, 60 years, what's in the top of that index today might not be at the top in the next 5 years. For instance, when we left when we started investing, Nvidia was not in that index, for instance. Facebook was, Netflix was, Tesla was not in the index either. So the beauty of what was those indexes, you don't have to pick up the best stocks.
Yeah.
The index will always pick it up, and I think the index gets refreshed every month or so.
Yeah.
So you automatically get the best company. If some company goes out of business, you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
So it's less risky than stock.
Yeah, and you don't have to like constantly monitor all the stock news and all that.
Yeah,
it took up so much of your mental space.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So we were a bit skeptical, but we read a book, The Simple Path to Wealth, from Jim Collins, which is a book I will recommend to your audience. It's a very good at demystifying a lot of those myths about the stock market is dangerous. You need to have a manager to manage your money because you cannot. Those are better than you to do, and all of those things that we kind of take for granted by looking at society, which are actually not true.
I see. Makes sense. And you document your journey on your website, Nomad Numbers, right?
Okay,
and
yeah.
so what inspired you to create this platform, and how has it helped you to connect with others, on the nomadic journey?
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, so we wanted to share everything we've learned along the way as we started our travel. So that's why we decided to build the platform. So the blog is about, it was initially a bit of a selfish reason for me. It was I wanted to connect with other people. So I'm going to say, okay, let's share our journey through mostly how much we spend and what we do. So people have an idea of how much it costs to travel the world full time as a couple. So if you go to our blog, you will see the place we stay, the experience we have, the food we eat, and then for each of that, how much does that represent in terms of US dollar spent. And we also share a bit of the philosophy and all of the tricks that we've been using to optimize some of those aspects, like what we pack, what credit card we use to save on flight, what are the tools we use, and so on. And then your second question was about what helped us build.
Yeah, what helped you build and maintain like a community while being constantly on the move? Yeah, how did that help you?
So the blog in a way help us connect with like-minded people, because the people that read our blogs will reach out to us sometimes. They say, oh, we are in this country, would be interesting to meet with you guys. We've met a couple actually from San Francisco last week.
Nice.
That were big cyclers, and we've been following us, and we finally overlap. So it's interesting because they get to know us more than we get to know them, but that's again, those people were a lot of common value. Like we are very, I'm very simple. I'm embracing minimalism, slow travel, all of those concepts. So a lot of people that read the blog also tends to follow those values as well. So I think the blog itself was a good way to build, to at least connect.
To connect with like-minded people who are also into digital nomad, slow travel, minimalism as well.
Yeah, building the community is kind of it's something different. I can go into that if you want, but it's more it's different than I think it's a long answer to get there.
Yeah. And just now you touched upon two key concepts. One is minimalism, the other one is slow travel.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose those two concepts are very, very different from your previous life, living in San Francisco, you're making really good money, and you're spending rather luxuriously. So I'm just curious, so how has embraced minimalism changed your perspective on life and happiness, and how would you define slow travel as well?
So I was not, so in San Francisco it's very easy to spend, though because I came from Europe I was not really a big spender. So I think that was really helping me to save, maximize my savings, and to just have to work for less than 15 years before retiring early. That being said, minimalism was something I was always excited about. And so minimalism, if you don't know, is just basically it's a mix of lifestyles and an art. I think for me it's all about living about don't trying to get attached to things, and just using things that bring you joy, and letting go of everything else.
So you have always had that mindset? growing up?
think I was not into, well, as a kid, you get a lot of, a lot of presents for your friends and your family, so you don't really think too much. But I was not really trying to accumulate a lot of stuff, like even my phone, like not trying to get the next phone every year.
Yeah.
So yeah, just looking what bring you joy to you. And just, people have cars, people have house. I've never wanted to buy. I mean, in San Francisco at some point I was contemplating the idea of buying a house, but it was never like I've been renting my entire life. And even now as we travel, I'm staying in Airbnbs or in apartment, and I don't have so far I'm not have the urge like, oh, I need to buy a house. Even though you can be minimalist and have a house, but I was not like attracting to those things. I'm just like, yeah, every time there is some things I want, I think my rule is like, is that something I'm going to want to use every day, right? Like if there is is that something that bring me value and bring me joy? If I cannot answer those questions, then I'm just going to let it go.
Right.
If there's a new shiny object, I'm just like, it's fine. And then after a week, I probably forgot about it.
That's very awesome. Like, I'm just very curious. So it sounds like this minimalist mindset is like rooted in you. Like, I'm just curious. Like, so where did this mindset come from? Is it from your parents, or your upbringing, or yeah?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of growing up in a very modest family, so we don't really have a lot of excess money. So every purchase has to be really mindful in a way, you need a bike because around our house we have a lot of, we used to walk to go from from our house to the city center, like to get groceries and stuff. Now if you have a bike, you can go to your city center and then the next town, right? So having a bike early on was like a very mindful and useful acquisition, right? I wanted as a kid like video games, video game systems, and because my friends were having those, and I wanted like the fancy one. I think that everybody. No, I wanted a computer. I think that was the thing. I wanted a computer and then and a video game system. So my parents asked me like, okay, you need to choose which was you want,
right.
And then within the budget we have, like you can only get this one. So I think there was that notion of being very mindful about your purchase. As I grew up though, I might have kept that as well, and I was also never excited about owning a ton of stuff. Because I think just whatever, I'm very like when I go shopping for clothes, for instance, I'm very picky and I really like to find things that fit me well and I really like. And 90% of the time all of those things doesn't fit me because like European side versus US was already a challenge, and then a lot of the design were not something I was excited about. So I think there was also a little bit of that on the minimalism side. And what I love about minimalism is that now you don't have to maintain a lot of things. Like, I have like 10 set of clothes. So when I wake up, I just pick all of the clothes that I love. So I just pick one. I don't have to think about them. And I have, we travel with 2 backpacks each.
That's awesome.
So it's like I probably have 25 kilo max worth of everything, and that's 95% of what I own. Everything else before we leave, we left everything behind. We sold everything. We got rid of our apartments. Got rid of 95% of our stuff. And 6 years later, we kept a few things in boxes, but I don't even remember what I kept, and I don't even miss that.
Yeah.
So I think your mind is really open to.
It doesn't take up as much mental space,
Exactly.
and you're just free. Like just like the Buddha say, like the cost of suffering is attachment. So when you're not that attached to like the material possessions, then your mind is like free, and you can focus on what is actually important and what really matters to you. Like your top priorities.
And you free up so much space. You wake up in the morning, your mind is pretty empty. You don't have to think about, someone needs to clean the house, take care of the garden. If I mentioned having a house, right? Having a house is nice, but there's a lot of
you have to maintain it as well.
And then the bigger the house, the more stuff you start adding because you tend to accumulate more. So there was all of that maintenance headache that I don't have to do. Even with clothes, sometimes I went to Japan to ski, and I don't have because we have limited space, we don't carry winter clothes because they are very bulky and stuff. So when skiing in Japan for a week, I just rented skis, gears, and clothes as well. You rent and then you let it go. And so I think having that freedom of
makes sense. And what does your day-to-day life routine look like currently as a digital nomad? Do you have like a routine per se, even though you're constantly on the move?
So I'm trying. So I think you touched a little bit on slow travel, and so we try to travel slowly. Because we want to have a set routine in place we go. So right now my routine, I try to wake up, so I don't wake up with an alarm. Wake up usually around 8 o'clock. I will do a bit of meditation for about 10 minutes just to anchor myself. And then after that, I jump into journaling for maybe another 10 minutes. My journaling routine is about 2 things mostly. I will journal what I did the day before in pretty much details, like everything I've done. And then write 3 things I'm grateful about for the coming days, and the 3 things I want to get done for that day.
Nice.
So that's a bit of gratitude and a bit of, okay, what do I want to get out of that day, like 3 things.
Right.
And that's pretty much done. And then through the day, I try to remind those 3 things and make sure I can get them done.
That's awesome. I think we have very similar routines. I also meditate in the morning as well.
Okay.
Using an app. Do you use an app or you just?
I just use an app to have some white noise.
Right.
So it's not guided, just for music, ambience noise, and just to know the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I use this app called Calm, and then it's always the same like narrator. Tamara left it. Yeah, that's the name, and then.
How long do you meditate for?
Like usually 10 minutes, and once that playlist ended, I will just like meditate for 20 or 30 minutes while waiting for my smoothie to come, because nowadays I typically order smoothie through Grab.
Yeah.
So like once I hear like the Grab song, like the notification song, then I know it's time for me to like open my eyes. And then I also like do some journaling in the morning as well. But for me, I would typically put like a to-do list. Like a list of things I have to do, like for my work, and also like for the other general stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then right before I go to bed, I will also journal again. Then I will like write down like things I'm grateful for, do a bit of reflection about what challenges I encounter throughout the day, and then like what should be my mindset, moving forward, like carrying on.
Okay, so when you go to bed with that mindset,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
what you've done, what you've appreciated.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah, like, so you go to bed with like a peace of mind, basically.
Yeah. It's, for me, I found it really hard. It's really hard for me to get a good routine at night. So I tend to do journaling in the morning, but yeah, maybe I should try to do more at, because there maybe a bit that sense of peace, I guess, to do more journaling before bed.
Yeah. And what is the most important lesson that you have learned from your nomadic lifestyle? Like you have been slow travel for 6 years. Yeah.
I think do more. I mean, there is a few lessons. I think the first one, I definitely want to do more of the slow travel, because I think it's really, you learn so much, you get immersed. It's like personal growth. It's very strong as you slow travel, and you move slowly. You try to you immerse yourself with those different cultures, and through the food, through the people, you learn so much about the world, and as well as yourself, because you get to see people that come from different backgrounds. Like here, we're currently in Chiang Mai, Thailand. A lot of people have way less money than I used to see when my friends in California. Yet they are really happy with not as much. Like as we went together to that meditation retreat, and you get to spend time with the monk. The monks go through the village, get the offerings. The villagers there have literally nothing.
Yeah.
Yet they give like a lot of food to the monks every day, and just that concept of giving, I think, was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I think I want to do more of that, because there is many places I haven't been to, and I want to learn more about the cultures as well as reflect about my own life. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I'm glad that I've done that when I was in my mid-30s, because I think now I have no regrets in life. I get to travel, I get to see many places, I'm still very healthy, in good shape. So I get to, I went hiking to the top, the highest peak in Taiwan this past summer, and doing it.
What's the name of that peak?
It's Jade Mountain.
Oh. Okay.
It's called Jade Mountain. 4,000 meters. We got to see an amazing sunrise there. But I was not the only one on the trail. There was like regular Taiwanese in their 60s or 70s, and you see them struggling to get to the top. Some of them missed the sunrise because it was windy and very hard for them. So also, don't have regrets in your life, and do the things in your bucket list. Don't wait too late. When you are in your 30s, do the things you want to do in your 30s. When you are in your 60s, maybe go on a cruise and stuff.
Yeah.
But don't wait to be in your 60s or 70s to do the things you want to do in your life.
Yeah, because it's very like a common belief in our society. Let's say like, maybe in your from your 30s and 50s, like you should like focus on your career,
Yeah.
raising a family and all that. Like, you know, you should like just like sacrifice and hustle, and then you just like basically like don't think about traveling until like you're 60 or 70s, right? But then one of the key concept that the 4-Hour Work Week, like written by Tim Ferriss, also talk about is like you don't have to wait until you're 60 or 70. You can actually travel right now, right? You know, like while also like pursuing your passion and also like focus on your career. Like it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It can happen at the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think another book that you and your audience can read is called Die with Zero.
That was zero.
You read that one?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it's about. I think it changed our perspective as I was starting to go through that travel journey. One of the concepts is that bucket list. I was slightly touching upon it. It's like have your bucket list of the things you want to do, but instead of bucketing into one list, you bucket by age range. So let's say cruising, right? If you want to do a cruise, you probably can do that in your 60 and 70. If you want to go to Everest base camp, you probably want to do that in your 30s, right? So not only you have your bucket list, but you also rank it based on your chapter in life. So then you get to make sure that you can do the right things with your right fitness level and those type of things. So that's one of the concepts. He also has a concept of a lot of parents tends to save for their kids to pass on. And the book said, well, it's good to do that, but once you passed away, you don't see what your kids can benefit from whatever savings you give them. So why not trying to do that earlier? So let's say you have kids in their 20s, maybe you can pay rent for them for a few months or give them help with them to buy a car. But do that when you are still alive, so that way you can see the fruits, you can see the benefits of giving to your kids. So a lot of interesting concepts. There is many more, but just a few. I think it's a good book for people to read.
Yeah, and also like life is not guaranteed, right? You cannot predict like, you know, how many years that you still have. So
no, you're right.
So I mean, you can hustle and like work hard and save a lot, but like, you know, life is not guaranteed. So,
I'm sure everybody knows. I have a couple of examples of people that get to retire and then either got really sick or something happens and they passed away really quickly shortly after. It's like, and they were very excited to start on their retirement and they've been planning for it. So I think that's also a reminder, like, do a little bit. I mean, you can still. I mean, like, I'm in a fortunate position that now work is optional, so I can just basically just have a life of leisure if I want. I'm still working on other projects, but I think you don't have to be in that. You can still enjoy things as you work, but just make sure you prioritize that as well.
What are the passion projects are you working on at the moment?
So I'm a software engineer, so I like to build stuff.
Nice.
So I starting with the blog. I didn't know how to blog, so I spent a lot of time on this. I've built an app called Nomad Numbers, which is like a travel budget app. Because as I mentioned earlier, I was tracking my budget very closely using spreadsheet. And it was a lot of manual work. You have to convert the currency, you know, from Thai baht to USD, from euro to USD. So a lot of manual process. So I say, okay, I'm just going to build an app. So it's a free app that I've put it out there for everybody.
I need that.
Every digital nomad. So you can check it out. I'm giving it out for free. You can, so you can track your business, your budget. And what's good about it is like you can see when you travel the world, how much it costs for you to live in Thailand versus living in Australia versus living in the US. So you have that map about your own spending, and then you can say, oh, okay, if I spend more time in Thailand, this is how much I will have to spend. If I spend more time in Indonesia or more time in Europe, so then you can kind of balance your budget.
That's awesome. I think that's also like one of the benefits of like achieving financial independence early in your life. Is like then you can allocate your time to focus on things that you're passionate about, like traveling or like the passion project per se. And then, I mean, you're no longer like just solely like, you know, working for the goal of like getting the enough income to like, you know, I mean, meet ends through meet or something like that.
To buy what you need or to like buy a house or and then it's all about your life starts once your life starts changing from more like what's your purpose and what's contribution you bring to the world, right? And that's, you know, when you work and work, everything is about your career, which if you have a good job, it's fine. But for most people, I think, I mean, 80% of people don't have like a very fulfilling job.
Yeah.
To say it frankly, I'm sure if you ask people if you have 6 months to leave, they're going to say, oh yeah, let me go back to work, like because like my work was amazing. They're probably going to want to travel or do what really they care about. So that's a good question for you. Like if you have 6 months to leave, what will you do?
Yeah.
And then it's like try to answer that question. It's like how do we want to give back society and
That's awesome. And so, as you mentioned, you built this like travel budgeting app. What are some of the best tips you can give to people like who want to in terms of budgeting? Yeah.
Oh, in terms of budgeting.
And also like saving money when they travel.
So I think the first thing is to be aware of what you spend. A lot of people spend, but they don't really track. Here, especially in Thailand, when everything is cash, you will just take a lot of money from the ATM at once and then you spend it. So so every day I track everything I spend, from a coffee to a bus ride, everything. So then you know what you spend, and then you have to categorize that. So all of that spending has to go into like meaningful categories. And once you have all of that information, then you need to have some kind of reporting that you do on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis to say, okay, this month, this is how much I spend on accommodation, how much I spend on food. I mean, the top three will be like accommodation, food, and transportation, which is usually where your money is going through. So first have an idea of how much you spend, then decide whether or not you think it's enough or you think it's too much. So then you can make some change to your budget. And start from there, I think. So initially I was doing that on a spreadsheet. I was using my phone to write down the spending. I was using an app called Splitwise. It's an easy app that can work offline. So it's easy if you don't have data to capture your spending. Then I was exporting that in a spreadsheet, putting on my own. Now my tools can take that input and give me already all of the information I need. So I just track, upload to Nomad Purse, and then now I have all of the spending per category. And as I create all of destination together, then I can consolidate that into a broader view, like yearly spending, like 5-6 year spending, and so on.
Once you understand your spending habit and pattern, then it becomes a lot easier to predict your future spending.
And funny enough, first year we are spending 30,000, 35,000, and so on. Like we are in that 40,000 spend. Even now, we don't really like closely track. I mean, we track what we spend, but we don't say, oh, we're not going to spend on this because it costs that much. We just automatically end up spending the same. Funny enough, even though we've been every month or two, we change countries every month or so. So we go to different places. Our budget ends up being always the same.
I see.
Roughly.
So you have been doing this digital nomad lifestyle for 6 years. I'm sure it's a lot of fun, but I'm sure it can also get a bit tiring sometimes. Have you ever got homesick and do you want to just refer to the traditional lifestyle? Have you given up? Or?
No, that's a good question. So for me, no. I'm not. So when I look back at my friends, it probably had happened to you. You go back to your friends; they have in their routine. So every time I go back to the US once a month to get and visit them, and it feels like their life hasn't changed for the past 5 years.
Right.
It's always the same job or the same drama and toxicity, whatever. And we don't want to brag about our life, but our life, I feel like 5 years has been like 20 years.
Because you experience so much, right?
Every time we go to a new place, we do new experience. So for that aspect, there is no way for me to go back. Of course, because work is optional for us, we can, if we are tired, we can just do nothing for a week. We don't have to wake up and take customers meetings and phone calls and stuff. So grateful that we don't have that stress. But even if you're still a digital nomad, we see a lot of them during that conference here, at the Nomad Summit here in Chiang Mai. So many people have much more flexibility as well. Plus they can grow their business, so they can work remotely. A lot of the things that my friends, even though after COVID, still they cannot really move easily because they are more traditional jobs. But back to your question about the challenges, I think packing and the logistic of having to always plan ahead. We tend to plan 3 to 6 months ahead, to find good spots and negotiate good rates in place we stay. So that can be a bit tiring. So I think I see myself with having base where we can go back to places when you don't have to handle all of that. You know, you have a place to stay, you know everything, you know the cost.
Yeah.
So at least you cut down on the logistic planning part
Yeah.
of it. So I think that's kind of the next step for us, is trying to find those bases.
Yeah.
Right now we have one in Taiwan,
Yeah.
but we want to have one in Europe in the summer.
Right. So like having one base camp in Taiwan, and also like finding another one in Europe.
Yeah, we want Europe. I mean, Taiwan has a bit of again, because we're thinking long term with China. There is always a chance that in the next 5 to 10 years, Taiwan might not be Taiwan. So we want a backup for that. And it's
Right.
also Asia is nice, but when you start looking overall, we are very conscious about air quality, water quality, pollution, and all of those things. I feel like Europe is a bit much better in those aspects.
In terms of air quality.
And
yeah.
health in general. I think eating out here is really nice, really cheap, but you know, when you look at the oil and the sugar and everything they put in the food, I think in the long term for our bodies, we are very health conscious.
Nice.
So I think Europe has much better healthy food and also a bit healthy lifestyle as well.
Makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Since you mentioned you are very health conscious, aside from practicing meditation and journaling, like what are some of your health routine?
Yeah.
Per se?
So I think sleep is the most important.
Yeah.
Trying to be very consistent with sleep. We usually go to bed around 10. I mean, ideally, we like to go to bed by 9. 9 to 10 is for me with my sleep pattern, and because I'm a morning person, is where I get most of my sleep quality. So I think sleep is the first thing we try to be consistent with and get at least 8-9 hours. I think I need 9 hours to have very good sleep.
Same.
Because then everything after that, everything follows. Like all of the domino falls correctly. If you try to be like exercise a lot and a good diet, but you have a mess up sleep, it's not going to be effective.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like after getting a night restful and good quality sleep, right? You just think so much more clearly.
Yeah.
And your body like just detox and naturally restores itself.
Yeah.
Basically. So what is some of your what is your sleep hygiene? What do you do before bed and during bedtime to optimize the sleep quality? Then have you always been? Has it always been easy for you to fall asleep, or? Yeah.
So I'm using I don't know if you can see. I'm using a Neura ring to track
Right.
my sleep
Right.
because I didn't really know. I thought I was always sleeping well.
Yeah.
And actually, when you start looking at your sleep stage, my REM sleep. So there is the 4 stage. There is like you are awake. You are in REM sleep. It's like when you dream, then you have deep sleep, where you consolidate, I think, your memories. And my REM sleep, my dream sleep was really bad. And I realized that it's not about getting, and it was always good to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
but because I was sometimes going to bed at 11 or midnight, just the fact, even though I was doing like midnight to 9 o'clock, it's to have good sleep, for me, I have to go back to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And then you learn that consistency is key. So you need to go back in bed at the same time. So during Nomad Week, because there was a lot of social events, I've totally messed up my sleep, but that's okay because it's a 1 week. Starting like in 2 days, I'll get back to my schedule and I'll be back on track. But I think consistency is key. Ideally, you want to get off of device an hour before. I'm still not really good as that.
That is huge. That is huge. I think for me, it's like I started this habit of like shutting off my phone I think a week ago, around 10:30 at night, and then after that I will journal for a bit and do a bit of reading, and then after 1 hour, and I found it to be like a complete game changer basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to try that. I think we went to that meditation retreat together during New Year's, and the fact that there is no screen for that retreat, and you fall asleep so easily. You do your last meditation during sunset, so everything is everything gets dark and your body just naturally fall asleep.
Yeah. I also on the topic of sleep, I also recently started this platform promoting sleep masks. Yeah. So basically, I started wearing sleep masks 1 year ago.
Okay.
And I just find it to be a complete life changer. Whenever because when I'm traveling a lot and also switching a lot of hotels, the environmental factors are always constantly changing, right? some like hotels or Airbnb, like, you know, there might be some light, you know, like even you try to shut off all the curtain and all that. And also like when you're flying like long haul flight, I mean, it's difficult, like, you know, there might be a baby like sitting next to you, like crying and all that, and like, you know, there might be some light. And with the sleep mask, I also designed it to be like a bit like three-dimensional as well, so it can fit your eyes and your nose a lot better. And the bandage is like elastic, and you just wear it. It just completely blindfold your eyes and all that.
And you get rid of the noise as well.
Yeah, basically. And then and then you combine it with the earbud and all. And the other sleep mask is also like, you know, you can wrap it around. It's like, you know, it's like Bluetooth sleep mask.
Yeah.
And then you can just play like, you know, some sort of music or like podcast while listening to it.
Yeah.
So these two types of sleep masks are currently available in the e-commerce store. Just help
I
me fall
should check
asleep.
it out. Yeah, I usually wear them in the plane.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, I think having a very dark bed environment is really key to sleep well. So sometimes you cannot do that based on where you stay.
Yeah.
Especially as you travel as a digital nomad.
Exactly.
So maybe I should check it out.
Yeah, last time when I flew from Hong Kong to Barcelona, it's like 11-hour flight.
Yeah.
I just wore it. Yeah, I slept for 9 hours straight, and then I wasn't affected by a jet lag at all.
Nice. Okay.
So it was cool.
Yeah, no, sleep is a big thing. If you can get sleep under control, then the rest will follow. I think the domino will fall nicely together. Then you can focus on food and fitness and
For sure. Yeah. And so if you can go back and do anything differently at the start of your journey, like what would it be?
I think if anything, I might want to take a bit of. I know it's hard to say in hindsight, but I think I would have started earlier. Because now I realize that I basically, again, back to the Diary Zero book, you don't want to work too much. You don't want to die with more. You want to die with zero, right? If you die with still 10,000 in the bank, it means that you work way too much. You might have worked an extra month, an extra year, right?
Yeah.
So I think I could have left working much earlier because I'm realizing that now, even though I'm spending what can be a large amount of money, my portfolio is still growing. And I feel like unless I significantly increase my spending, I'm going to, and I don't have or nor have plans to have raise a family. So I'm just going to have a lot of money that I don't know what I'm going to be able to do with. So just I would have been able to start that journey 5 years earlier, which seems a bit crazy, right? But anyway, I'm very grateful to be able to do it at such a young age. So overall, not too many regrets. Just I think I was always good at designing a life I wanted, or focusing of what was core to me, what was not what was society telling me to do. So we mentioned a bit of minimalism. Like I was never into like buying big houses, like huge mortgage, all of that. So I think that helped me just design my own life. I just didn't know that if you invest early and you invest in those vehicles, like I've mentioned, then your money will go for you a lot. I accidentally did it because the company I was working on were giving me stocks that I was putting on the side because I was kind of saver mentality, and that grew a lot, so that can help me bootstrap. But think about your life. Think outside of the box. And just do what you think you want, and everything is possible. It's just don't try to think inside the box that society gave us, because there's too much constraint.
This is so important. And since you touched upon that, like, I'm just curious, when you first decided to become a digital nomad, like, how did your friends and family, close ones, like, react to it?
Well, I didn't tell them anything the first year. I was just telling them I was going to travel. So I say I need to leave my job and to travel. And then after, because I wanted to test it out by myself. Like, that idea seems to be too good to be true. Like most people work until they're 65, right? How can you just do that halfway through your career, even less than halfway? So I didn't tell them first, but after a year, I took my parents. We would travel with them, and I explained to them. I was telling them that I was investing my money in real estate, because for them the concept of having rents coming in. Actually, I had a bit of real estate because I wanted to diversify, but it's not most of my investment. So for them, they felt, you got property, you have rent coming in, then you can sustain your travel. That makes sense. And they were quite supportive. They saw me happy.
Nice.
What I was doing, and
that's awesome.
So
Did you inspire your parents and some of your close friends to live a similar lifestyle as well?
At first, I was like, I have that secret, you guys. Actually, it's not a secret. You guys should do it. It's super easy, especially people in San Francisco that make a nice amount of money, they can do it. But after the first year, I stopped telling people because people didn't really wanted to make the change. I mean, you want to, is that something you want to do in your mind, right? So you have to have the mindset. People didn't felt excited about this. They were happy to like, you know, still go through in the grind and their lifestyle. It seems to be, for them, that makes sense. So I stopped teaching them. Though when people come back to us now, it has been 5+ years. Oh no, you guys are still traveling. How can you? Well, how is that possible? Now it has been 5 years. Like you're not running out of money, you know. So when they ask me, then I kind of share what I was sharing with you. But I'm not trying to push the gospel. No.
Yeah. It's either like people, they're too afraid of stepping out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But part of it is also like everyone's different. Everyone has a different lifestyle, right? Being a digital nomad might seem very, very cool, but it also takes a certain personality as well. You have to be extremely independent. You have to be willing to take calculated risks. And to socialize with people.
To start a business, to be able to do like to work on your own.
To work on your own and like to be extremely disciplined. I think that's huge. Like, you know, when you touch upon like the habits of like, you know, practicing meditation, journaling, sleeping around a certain time, it keeps you like productive. And like, you know, to pursue your work and also your passion as well. Not everyone has like those qualities, so basically.
And it's interesting because a lot of my friends usually at that age have family. So for them it's like, oh, you guys don't have kids. It's good for you, it's easy, it costs less. But at the conference we met a woman that decided to raise her kids. She was digital nomad, then decided to have kids, and raise their kids as they are still traveling. So it's still possible. It's just I don't have the, you know, because I don't have kids, I cannot really talk about that. And I don't have the credits because like people can say, oh yeah, sure, you can tell us that, but there are people doing it. So it's again, it's the mindset. I think if you put yourself into what you want, then you will make it happen.
Exactly. Stay true to yourself.
Exactly.
What is the most memorable or transformative experience you have had in the past 6 years? Can you single one moment?
Wow. Okay, so there are a few, but if I want one, I think I will choose the meditation retreats for the New Year's. That's where I've met you, actually, in Pape. So we went to spend a few days with the monks in that beautiful meditation retreat, surrounded by nature, with no device, waking up very early at 5 a.m. to do like early meditation for hours and spending time with the monks, learning from their knowledge. And having the chance, I think it's quite rare opportunity to spend the New Year's with them, get their blessings.
That's awesome.
And launching lanterns, which was like the symbols of launching something in the air, letting, you know, the past year going away and welcoming the New Year's. That has been like an amazing experience I remember for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
What about you?
You mean in my...
Like what would be a past memorable? I mean, I know you did that one, but do you have another one in the past years that for you would be an experience that was strong or like something you remember?
I think the Pape meditation retreat was definitely like a huge highlight. But another highlight would also be another Vipassana meditation retreat that I attended 4 years ago in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was around the time when I first like, you know, graduated, and I just decided to take a gap year. So I was actually talking to one of my friends from uni. He has always been like, you know, a huge fan of like attending like meditation or yoga retreats all over the places. I just want to do something new during my gap year. So I just asked him like, oh, can you recommend some sort of meditation or yoga retreat that I can attend? And he suggested like Vipassana. Without doing like more research, I just signed up for it. And it turns out it's actually like the hardest like form of meditation that you can do. So I basically just springboard from like having no meditation experience to doing like the hardest form of meditation.
How long was it?
It's an 11-day silence.
11 days. Oh wow.
11-day silence meditation retreat. They take away your phones. It's gender segregated. You're not allowed to talk for 11 days. And then
it's a lot of deprivation.
Exactly. And then vegetarian. You live as a vegetarian for 11 days as well. So it's very challenging. I mean, in the first 2 or 3 days, I found it quite refreshing. You know, being away from the hustle and bustle of city life, but then, you know, once it got to like the fourth day or fifth day, then you start like you start experiencing the like the challenge, right? But then I found it super transformative.
Okay.
Yeah, you just like, because when you meditate 6 or 7 times, throughout the day, each one session like lasts for an hour, for an hour. Like when you meditate, like when you start meditating, a lot of like the negative thoughts might creep in, right?
Yeah.
So like you learn how to sit still with your thoughts, and one of the key insights is just like you have to be okay with whatever thoughts that just pop in your head. Like you just learn to let go and like be okay with it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
It's quite simple, but I think everybody should try.
yeah,
You don't have to go to 11 days, but just like having enough deprivation that
Yeah.
you have to struggle with your mind.
yeah,
It's mind-blowing, and you can do it at home. You don't have to travel. I mean, it's better if you can go to those retreats, and Thailand has a lot, or Taiwan as well,
Yeah.
looks like.
yeah,
But I think it's amazing, and yeah, it makes you rethink again minimalism. All of the value that I've adopted through my life, I think they are based on like not attaching yourself to stuff, right?
yeah.
And yeah, I think meditation is amazing.
And also the other key lesson I learned is not to be so reactive to your thoughts,
Yeah,
right? I mean, if you experience something that makes you angry, are you just gonna get angry? Or if something, like pleasant happen, are you just gonna get excited right
Yeah,
off the bat?
yeah,
Then your life would just go like a roller coaster, right?
yeah, it's true.
Instead, like just always try to like stay still and stay calm no matter what. Finding that like peace of mind. Then regardless of like what happens like externally, you always, once you always have that like internal mind peace of mind, then then you can deal with everything, right? You're always gonna be calm and happy no matter what.
Yeah.
And be solution oriented instead of like trying to be reactive all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that helps me so much, once I start working, and that helps me to navigate, a lot of like challenges like relationship wise or like work wise.
Yeah.
It helps me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good cure, and it's free. Huh?
Yeah.
Don't need to take pills. It's like what I like to. We mentioned fitness, but I think a lot of people are really good at exercising. So it's like making your body, like it's working out on your body, but you also need the fitness for your mind. And I
Right.
think that's what meditation is about. It's like making your mind fit,
Yeah.
stronger. So I think you need both. Otherwise, it's not because you are physically strong that if your mind is not there, then you struggle in a lot of things in life.
Yeah, for sure.
unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice talking to you today. Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
very good conversation.
Thank you,
so,
David, for giving me the opportunity to share, and it's
Yeah.
always nice to reflect on those
Yeah.
because it has been so long. So yeah, thank you for taking the time, and I hope it will be valuable for your audience as well.
Awesome.
Hopefully, you can take anything away from this
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah.